Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's Talking Stick Show. Sit back, relax, and let's go forward. So I'd like to welcome today my co-host. We have the great, the wonderful Laura Massey. Hello.
Hi guys, good to be here.
And good to have you here. Just fresh from a party as well. She's fresh from the party. Fresh from the dance.
You can't tell any secrets, you know.
They just pop out. And I'd also like to welcome my brother Matty Waller as well. Hello, brother.
Hello, fella. How we doing, everybody?
Good. And it's great to have you on. And we'd like to welcome as well, we have the great Amy Kruzik. Hello.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
And thank you for coming on again. It's a pleasure.
Sure.
And hello, Trent. How are you doing, brother? We welcome Trent to the show. And you've seen Trent as well from various Andrew videos of couples healings. So it's an honor to have you on, brother.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. How are you guys today?
I think we're doing all good, yeah.
Good.
And we're ready to get going with the show as well. We've kind of had a lot of changes in the background happening where we're going to have a schedule once every 2 weeks now. We'll be going live on the Galactic Historian Rumble page. And if you're watching live as well, I recommend going to the Galactic Historian Rumble page and pressing subscribe as well. So we'll be slowly moving a lot more content onto Rumble as well. And we're allowed to say a lot more things on Rumble, which is great.
Yeah.
So, brilliant. Let's begin. So we have the topic of talking about the ancestors this evening, the right way to talk about them. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to bring Laura in to start. Hello, Laura, again.
Hello, Dale. Hi, everybody. What I thought we'd start with is something that you might remember, Amy, I did way back in Earth Nouveau in the very early days during lockdown, and we had a show on the ancestors, and I took us to the spirit fire, the ancestral spirit fire, and we brought in our 4 bloodlines of our ancestors, and that's how we begin to start our right relationship with our ancestors. So I'd like to do a meditation with everybody now, and then those who are here and anybody who's in the chat can come on and share their experiences. So what I'd like you all to do now is just take a couple of deep breaths. And just relax. Get that inner eye working. And I'm going to take you to the spirit fire. Now the spirit fire is stacked high with ancestral wood. So we've done our prayers over the wood and we've lit our sacred fire. We're going to welcome and bring in the 7 directions. So we're going to call in the ancestors of the north, land of the frozen lakes and the white bison, land of the ancient ones, the grey-haired ones, the grandfathers, and the snow-capped mountains. Come share with us this sacred space as we connect to our bloodlines, our ancestors. We're going to turn to the ancestors of the east, land of the rising sun, land of yellow, land of wisdom, illumination and clarity, where we fly wing to wing with Great Spirit. We ask you, brilliant ancestors of the rising sun of the east, to come and open this sacred space with our spirit fire for connection to our ancestors. And we turn to the ancestors of the south, cradle board of the 7 future generations, land of the coyote and the mouse, of red fields and green flowers, land of my childhood, ancestors of the south. Come open this sacred space of spirit fire with us now so we can connect to our ancestors. And we turn to the ancestors of the west, land of the medicine wheel, the brown bear, land of autumn. Come, ancestors of the west, come open this sacred space, this sacred spirit fire, so we can connect to our DNA, bloodline, ancestors. And we call to Earth Mother, And all your light denizens, come open sacred space with us. And we call to Father Sky, Grandfather Sun, Grandmother Moon. Shine your wisdom and help us connect to our DNA lineage ancestors and our higher self. I also like to call in the four celestial winds who bring the messages of peace across our fire here. And now we're going to join hands around our spirit fire. This is an ancestral fire. This beautiful burning fire has been created especially so we can connect with a representative from each bloodline. So that will be our 4 DNA lineage bloodlines will be our father's father's line, our father's mother's line, our mother's father's line, and our mother's mother's line, the grandmother's line. So as you join hands now and connect around the fire with everybody here, because we're sharing this beautiful sacred moment with everyone who's listening, everyone in the chat, and the 5 of us here now. Each of you, each of us, will have a representative from each line step forward and call someone forward to you for you to meet, an ancestor who will have a special connection for you and maybe have a message for you. So first of all, picture this emissary coming forward, this representative of your father's line. So ask them to step forward. And take a look at what they look like and try and connect in any way you can with them. This is the Spirit Council who are with us here, or the Ancestral Council, along with our spirit allies, are helping us bring forward these representatives for us. So see if you can connect in any way to who's come forward from your father's line, DNA lineage, and see if you can tune into any message, if you can feel if they have a message for you. Perhaps there's no message, perhaps you can just take a note of what they're wearing, but just try and feel for a few moments if they have anything they're bringing forward. Perhaps they're bringing forward a gift for you. Perhaps they're handing something to you. Reach out over the fire. This is our portal to the ancestors. So reach out over the fire and greet them. And when you've finished, thank them. Thank them for coming forward. And when you're ready, now ask the Ancestral Council and your spirit guides to bring forward a representative from your father's mother's lineage. Again, feel their presence as if they're stood here with you at the fire. They're standing in front of you. Can you feel their love? For the ancestors that are coming forward are the bright and beautiful ancestors. These are the fully realized ancestors who've reached their destiny, who come with good, true and beautiful hearts, So from your father's mother's line, greet this representative, reach out over the fire, our great spirit fire we're sharing here, and see if they have a gift or a message for you. Maybe you can see the face, maybe you can see what they're wearing, but know and trust that whatever you're seeing or feeling is what you're meant to see and feel, and that it's just for you. Although we're in a group sharing this, those that come forward are just for you. It's very personal. When you've had time and had some communication, then you're going to ask your spirit guides and ancestral council for somebody from your mother's, father's line. And someone will step forward. You may reach your hands out again over the fire. We're in a safe space here. We've let go of fraud time now. And we're building quality of relationships with these connections. And greet who's ever stepped forward from your mother's, father's line. Again, feel their presence. Feel their love. Feel them with you. And maybe they have a little something to say to you. And when you're ready, again, thank them for coming forward. And then we move to the grandmother's line, our mother's mother's line. And we go through the same process. This is part of the right relationship with your ancestors, is the degree of honour and respect and equal co-creation with which we conduct ourselves, whether in the spirit realm or the physical realm. There is no difference. This might be an invisible realm, but we still must use the same protocol of this equal co-creation. So again, ask your spirit allies, ancestral council, to call them forward. Feel that heart connection from that great grandmother's line. And you know, with all these ancestors, their blood flows through you. Their wisdom flows through you. Because of them and the lineages they come from, you are here now in the being that you are. They have brought you this legacy. When you're finished in your communication, take a step back and wave to them through the fire. It's here we must thank our spirit allies. We must thank the Ancestral Council for their part in this reunion. And we take a step back. We thank Spirit Fire for being the portal for us, for our ancestors. And we will close the sacred space that we have opened here, thanking once again the 7 directions of north, south, east and west, above, below and within. We thank the four winds, thank our spirit guides and our allies. And most of all, we thank those bright and beautiful ancestors who have stepped forward to communicate with us today. And we bless and we close this sacred fire of connection, and we close this sacred space. Aho.
Aho. So just allowing yourself to process that, just allowing it to go into the memory, into the body, into the bones, and just allowing yourself to breathe into comfort. Incredible. How was that for you, Matty?
Sorry for the day, my mic was off. Very multi-dimensional this time. The last time I did it, it was very human-esque, but this time it was slightly different. So there was one human which was the first one, the father's mother's line, and the father's it was an insectoid, and then there was an inner earth being on the mother's father's, and then another insectoid hive consciousness for the other one, which was quite unexpected. Because usually they come forward as human ancestors, but it just goes to show how far back this goes and how broad our DNA really is.
Incredible, brother. Incredible. Trent, how was that for you?
For me, it was really emotional. Whenever Laura said to have your father's generation come, what I seen first was a man, and he was kind of like a ghostly man. You know, he was just like white and smoky, and he had like this suit on and this big white bushy beard. and then I was able to see through him, and then I seen like a native, an Indian. It wasn't a chief, but he did have feathers on his head. And whenever Laura said to speak to him and see if he has a gift for you, he handed me a flute. And it touched my heart, because I really love the flute. You know, it really does speak to my soul. And, you know, a couple other people came. Can you hear me? Okay. I can't hear you guys. Okay. I
Can you hear? Yeah, just a few of us have muted, just so that there was a bit of an echo going on.
Yeah, it could be
Okay.
me, which is why I've muted.
So another person that came up, and I was really surprised, was this black man, and he was so tall. He was like a giant. Like he was huge. And you know, I gave him a hug, and you know, I was barely at his waist. Like he was huge. And yeah, it was a really beautiful experience. Had me emotional. Thank you, Laura. That was awesome.
Pleasure. I'm glad you got something out of it, Dale. Trent, sorry.
Thank you.
Beautiful experience there, and thank you for sharing that insight, and thank you, Trent. And so, Amy, how was that for you?
Yeah, it was quite beautiful, Laura. Thank you. Wow, again, like Trent, there was a very tall being in my father's lineage that had like, just wanted to give me a hug. So I don't know who that could have been, but he felt very, very just soft. And my father's mother's side, I got a recipe from somebody, so they handed me that. And I saw my grandfather on my mother's side that died before I was born. And he came forward, and he was kind of like apologizing for dying before I got to see him or be with him. So that was kind of cool, that happened. And then my mother's mother, again, I think it was my great grandmother. Well, it was my great grandmother. She handed me a gold ring that is actually in my mother actually has this gold ring, but she said this gold ring is a spiritual gold ring for you. Like, you don't need that physical gold ring. You just need this spiritual gold ring. Don't worry about, handing things down, because this is for you. This is from me to you. So that was quite beautiful. Yeah, thank you.
Wow. And yeah, for me personally, beautiful. Thank you, Amy. And that's really cool that they're getting the recipe. That grandmother, grandfather love passing down.
Yes.
The time traveling recipe. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Amy. And
Yes.
for me, that experience, it was incredible. So I had my father who had a Harris hawk called Fallon, and I saw him with the hawk, and I saw Fallon just land like on a fence next to me, and I saw my dad holding it with loads of different wires and straps holding the bird. And when you said, Laura, about something personal for you, so they'd know, obviously it's a personal message, that was as personal as it could get, because he was showing me it is fucking me. Oh, sorry for the swearing. Oops. So he was saying to me that it was him, that what more do you need? And he was basically saying to me as well how our relationship was just growth for us to learn from each other. Even though it's hard at times, there was so much karma we resolved in this lifetime together, from me forgiving, him forgiving, and me going into a peaceful way about him loving him. So thank you, Laura. How did you feel reading that? What was that like for you?
I love it. I mean, I do always get emotional when talking about the ancestors, because I've always held such love for them. I felt so very deeply. And in my own situation, because my parents split up when I was 6, and I went to live with my grandmother. And of course, then I was surrounded by all the great aunties and uncles, and grew up with a big family of already an older generation. And I think also my grandmother was reasonably spiritual, so I think that particularly has helped my connection. And one or two things that happened to me as a child, like she passed away in the room next to mine, and she had a little gold brooch she used to play. It was a musical brooch she used to play for me when she was alive, and it was her stuff had been put into storage in my room. And one night I remember the brooch started playing, and I wasn't frightened at all, because I knew she'd come to speak to me. And throughout my life, many things, I'm sure everyone has experiences like that, whether it's a white feather or something else. But I've talked to her often over the years. So the sort of learning from Andrew and other people how to do this sort of ancestral connection has enhanced my journey. And yes, I mean, like many of you, I talk to her or them like they're here sometimes, because for me they are here. They are here. It's just an invisible realm.
And that's it. And it's honouring them in a way that when we walk on this earth, honouring their memory and honouring ourselves as well, because when we do cross over to the Blue Road of Spirit, we then become the Blue Road ancestors. At the moment, we are the Red Road ancestors. We share this red blood all together. So we could go into, let's talk about the actual meaning of ancestors, because we're trying to bridge the gap between the true right ancestral connection between the false, which is the media and the narrative give us. I feel there's a lot of stuff on the media itself to disconnect us from them, I feel like the ancestral teachings and traditions are kind of like pushed to the back. I won't go too much on it because I'm on YouTube, so so I won't try to go further down any road. So I'll bring you in, Matty. So what's your understanding of ancestors, and maybe the difference between what a lot of people perceive them as to what truly they are?
Muted.
Muted.
There we go. How's that?
Yeah.
Good.
So the first thing we have to understand is that they are outside of time. And one of the ancestors that I met whilst I was in that meditation was old and young simultaneously. So I could see them as both overlaid. So they were an old woman and a young woman simultaneously. And that was the lesson that she was giving me, you see. And when we understand they're outside of time, it gives us so much more connection. So we have our DNA lineage ancestors, which are obviously mother and father's bloodline, going back and going forward. And then, because we must remember that our ancestors are also future as well. They're not just those in the past. There's those in the future yet to come that still have connections to us from the South Pole. And gosh, I've lost my train of thought. And then we have our ancestors, which is everyone that we've ever been, past, present, and future. And so for me, when I first began to connect to the ancestors, it was very insincere. So I didn't really put much appreciation into my bloodlines, and I was too busy with a lot of the woo-woo stuff. And so, even Andrew's stuff, just the really far out stuff, And I remember once I was just sat at a fire, and it was a casual fire. It wasn't a ceremonial fire. But I did start to think about the ancestors, and I mentioned to them that I was willing to learn respect, basically. I spoke to them in a way that was respectful. And that developed a connection to the ancestors. I had to address them first. So as the journey progressed, I found deeper and deeper ways to connect to my ancestors through prayer. And there was also some very negative ancestral interaction going on as well. I was very much haunted by members of my own lineage. And once I began to really appreciate the teachings of equal co-creation, non-competition, non-hierarchical order, then I was able to bridge the gap between which ancestors were able to come in and which ones were not in the spiritual court of equity. Once I got to that point, then it was about developing source connection. And every time I gained greater source connection, I had more access to a broader range of ancestors. So my understanding of it now is that whenever completely at will, or whenever I enter into a sacred space, or whenever I pray, or whenever I decide, all of the ancestors are there. And they're there because of me. So wherever I am, my ancestors are as well. And always there, always present. But you do have to kind of reach out and say hi.
And that's it. Well put, man. There was a lot of people have, say, a bad relationship with someone in the family, and that gives them their clouded view of the ancestors. So let's talk a little bit about that and the imprinting we get, because I speak to a lot of people who are into lots of angelic stuff, but as soon as you mention ancestors, they say, I had a dad or a mum who's an absolute arse, I hated them. So now my imprint and what I think about the ancestors, so I'll bring you in, Laura, to talk about that a little bit more, about the true ancestral connection between everything.
Yeah, so you're going to have these ancestors who aren't healed, really, is what you're talking about, isn't it? The one bad apple in the barrel and so on, which we've all got them, I'm sure, in every lineage. And once you pick up you take on the mantle of responsibility, you're past the torch of eldership, then you know that you've come here now to help them heal, to help your lineage heal by doing the work. So for me, that's if there is, I'm not especially aware of anyone in my lineage, but I don't sort of look at it like that. The way I do my ancestral work is by striving to do the prayer, to do the daily practice, to be the best I can be shamanically. I know that that will provide some healing for my ancestors. And I don't always specify what healing, whether someone was a drunk and had an alcoholic problem or whatever problem it is. You know, I would have carried some of that forward within me. By doing my self-mastery, I'm passing that up and down through the lineage. So every time I do work on myself, I know I'm helping my lineage. I'm helping my future, as Matty said, future generations, and I'm helping my past generations. So when I do this exercise of going to this ancestral fire, we're calling forward the good ancestors, the bright and beautiful ones from the luminous realm, who have come to help us and co-create with us, and they will be aware of these other ancestors who who haven't been able to pass on properly or complete their destiny or whatever you want to call it, and we're all working together. This is what I love about it. We're all one team, aren't we? Past, present, and future. You know, striving for the fifth world of peace, and that's what we're here for. You know, that's the beauty of it. We have this massive team, support team, behind us, with us, and we're also their support team. And we're the boots on the ground in the DNA skin suit doing the work, and they're doing that work with us.
And that's it, that allowing that co-creation to be part of you and acknowledging that you're part of the past, present and future simultaneously. You're connected to the ancestors of the past and honouring them as we walk, and offerings are some of the greatest ways that we can honour the ancestors. Tell them that we know you're there, we honour you by giving you this offering. So before we go into the offering, and we'll go into ancestral hauntings as well, I feel, we'll bring Amy in and we'll bring Trent in. What was your understanding of ancestors to you? And we'll start with yourself, Amy.
Okay. Well, before learning about Andrew's teachings, I just thought ancestors was my bloodline. You know, that's basically what I thought that was. So I've learned a lot about the spiritual practice, like what Laura was saying. Like, I totally got that. How when we do that spiritual practice, we are healing. I didn't understand that. You know, I just thought people died and they went on and that was it. There was no healing. You know, so this is so beautiful that we can do that with our daily practice, that we do it past and we do it forward. And because I've opened up to more possibilities and more potentials, I did get a visit from my grandmother a month ago, and we were sitting on the couch chatting, and this is the first time. I've never had her visit me, and she taught me how to sew, and she taught me all those, you know, things to do, knit, and she said, "I'll help you." And I'm thinking, "Oh, you're going to help me when I'm stuck on one of the patterns, and she goes, and she's like, "I'll help you." So I took it as, "I'll help you here," you know. So that was very beautiful, and I would have never been open to that. I never, you know, it's just so beautiful the way that these teachings are, that we can do that. What else was I going to ask? So, well, I have other questions, but we can just move on.
Yeah, go. What question did you want to ask?
Well,
Go ahead.
no. What about ancestors of, like, because what about when we feel like I feel like the whales are the ancestors for me. Oh, okay. Yeah, like the whales and shells and the water and the sea, like I feel those are my ancestors too. I know that I was a whale.
We've all been whales in order to be here on this journey, to get here where we are right now at this point, and to have this level of awareness that we do. We have to have been whales.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have been everything. everywhere.
Yeah.
And that's it. And when we go through into the fifth world of peace, the sixth world of peace, it's about we'll all have the memories of everything happening here, all the memories of the past here as well. So we'll be able to share the experience of the whales, of the dolphins, of the merfolk. And that's the beauty of this 7-color Earth Mother Gaia Sophia experience that are able to experience so much in this 7-color skin suit, this meat bag we're experiencing now.
Wow, that is beautiful. Yeah, thank you for that.
And thank you, beautiful, and seeing that connection, Amy, between you and how everything's changed for you in that way. That trust is coming back to you. You're allowing yourself to feel with your heart again instead of feeling with here what people say and what your perceptions are. You're allowed to go, you know what, I'm feeling from here now, and it's changing for you. That's inspiring.
Yes, exactly right. And it seems as if it's happening very quickly for me. It's like,
yes,
it's like, okay, let's go. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Amy. And Trent, hello, brother.
Hello. So my relationship with the ancestors didn't exactly start out as connected as, as they are now. It was basically just, me pulling cards and asking questions. Basically, I was just asking for stuff all the time. And it wasn't until, I took one of Andrew's teachings and recommendations and told my story to the fire that I really began to understand. And that's when I really started to connect. And my first relationships with the ancestors were with the elements. I have a really strong connection with the elements. But that night, I learned about equal energetic exchange. I learned so much. I realized a couple different things. At first I thought, only their wisdom can help me. But whenever I was telling my story, I also realized that my story can help them as well. My wisdom, my understandings, my insights are just as valuable to them as theirs are to me. And, I learned about equal exchange. I learned about giving back and, being equal exchange in myself and not always asking and taking. I learned about the ability to give. And whenever you do, both parties, they grow, So that's really where my connection started, was whenever I started working with the fire, working with the elements. I found out that each element has the ability to ground you. Air does, water does, earth, fire, they all can ground you. They all can transmute energies as well. So just like telling your story to the fire, you can do it to the water, you can do it to the air, you can call them all in. And as you're telling your story, you'll get more insight from it just almost instantly. So that's really where I started to connect is whenever I started giving back and working with ancestors that wanted to give back and not just take. So that was really special for me.
Incredible. And that's it. When you start allowing yourself to go into those memories and going back and speaking to the fire, speaking to the natural element, your own stories, the ancestors are listening and learning from you as well. They're able to actually hear your story. And one of the great sayings, knowing thyself is one of the most important things you can possibly do. And the same with me, brother, when I went through the stage of being integrated into the fire by saying my story to it as well, I realized who the fuck I was. And it's like you start exploring yourself, and the ancestors are there listening to you in co-creation, where you're able to have this message of your own. Like, everyone here has a story, everyone here has something they've gone through, something they can help others with. It's a beautiful process. And to have shows like this where we can bring on yourself as an ancestor, Laura, Matty, Amy, we're all ancestors here, and we're all sharing this road together, and it's beautiful. It really is. Laura, is there any direction you wanted to go into next with the show regarding the ancestors?
No, I mean, I love to hear people's experiences as well. And Danny's talking a lot in the chat. I can't respond in the chat, Dale. I'm not sure whether I have access to it, the general chat.
You should be able to.
Okay, not to worry. So, Danny, I'm sorry I'm not responding, but I'm reading your what you're putting in there for us, which is great. And if you've had any experiences from, or anyone who's had any experiences from that meditation, please put them in the chat if you want to share them. So we can't have anyone else actually in the room now, can we, Dale? Is that right?
Yes, we can. We can have another 5 people. So it's up to 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So no, I love getting feedback. I think it's very interesting how we can deal with the ancestral trauma that comes down in lineages as well. If people have ideas for other people about what's a good way, I know we all do the daily practices and so on, but if there's, for me a particular one is dance. Okay, so I would apply dancing to almost release some of the traumas that are carried forward, or maybe singing, So how, Dale's a question for you. So how would you recognise that an ancestral trauma, and how would you deal with it? What would you do to heal?
I'd say a great example would be today when I was speaking to Gabrielle, that her gran had an issue with cats and dogs, and it got passed down to the next generation, to the next, as ancestral karma. And we were talking about it and laughing about it. Some people hate pets, and that's just, some people don't like them, and the more than likely, not all the time, I'd say 8 out of 10 times, you'd ask, is your mum the set like that? And they said yeah. And so for me, it's recognizing ancestral karma and the habits you pick up from growing up with the environment you live on. Say if you have a dad who's very controlling, or you have a dad who's a narcissist, or you have a mum who's very lets everyone do everything for her, doesn't have any control in her own life, or doesn't do anything spiritual or self-love, blah blah blah. We have these passed down to us as ancestral karma, and they can become traumas as well. So I feel the majority of the stuff from the ancestors is what you grew up in, and we've accepted and wanted to come in here to experience this as well. So it's about removing the pity party self of my dad did this, my mum did this. I went through that, and it's just karma. It brought nothing to me but just, I'd say, hate and low frequency. So when we're able to accept and look into what ancestral karma has been passed down to us, and what can we do to resolve it, what can we do to change, to break the ancestral karma. Like everyone on this call has done so much great inner work that they've probably released thousands or millions of years worth of karma in their lineage. They've just gone straight and flipped the frequency on it. What no one in that lineage for a long time is being able to step up, understand they are a master, understand they are an infinite, not held back by Roman numeral time. And this is why the inner work is so fucking important, for you to be able to resolve it. So when you do cross that rainbow bridge, when you go onto it, you can look back at your life review and go, I tried, didn't I? I gave it a go. I gave it a good old crack. Not like that last lifetime, 10 lifetimes ago, which I was bringing a lot of karma through from that. I'd say, is that a good answering your question, Laura, about the ancestral? I'd say a lot of it is given to us from them. So it's about us being responsible and aware and doing the inner work to change that. So when I pass over my stuff to the kids, they can see I put effort into myself. They can see I've changed, because I've changed so much over the last 10 years. Say 10 years ago, I was addicted to drugs. I was addicted to partying. I didn't enjoy who I was. And throughout the years, I've transformed, and I've put my effort in to be here today with you beautiful people. And I have put so much work in, like everyone else has. And to pass that, seed that onto the next future generation is incredible. And that's what we're here to do. No matter what you've done in the past, there's no shame, blame, guilt, judgment here. It's about everyone stepping up now, being responsible, forgiving and moving forward. Does anybody want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I would like to. So the interesting thing is that in my personal experience, some of my more recent ancestors were negatively affecting the bloodline. So I'll try to be as vague as I can. There was one which would have been a grandparent scenario that was an abuser that on passing had to, go through the life review process and was fractured by what they saw and became a shard. And this shard then began to negatively affect the whole of the family. And so in my work, I mean, it was Andrew that pointed it out to me. I think it would have been a very difficult thing for me to see, although I did come across it before, but I didn't really pay much attention to it until Andrew pointed it out once again. And so in order to stop this particular ancestral entity from affecting me and those that are my descendants, I had to learn alchemy. So it was the brewing of the alcohol, putting the prayers into the alcohol, placing the alcohol out around the house, and really sanctifying my environment, seen and unseen. So in a way, it was a forced evolution, probably for me and for this particular ancestor. But this is what we're here to do, right? So it didn't heal for all of the people in my family, but certainly for myself and my children, it's been effective. So it's the gift that I pass on of my own work there. So it really is. It works both ways with the ancestor beings, because it really comes down to prayer process and how you use your words to bring forth that which you actually need to bring forth, and how you cast away that which you need to cast away. And it is, you have to be completely neutral about it, because these types of ancestral beings that are going through these processes, these forced evolutionary processes or darker processes, they need their healing too. And sometimes they just need to be thrown away, pushed away to do their healing. Sometimes we need to offer them something and then push them away. But like Trent was saying about asking, the ancestors are there for that as well. They love to get involved and to do things and to help. But it is, like you said, Trent, an equal co-creation. And once you understand that teaching, that's when you enter into the co-creational phase. So something like you're saying a beautiful prayer where you really actually mean what you say, and then I burn something like frankincense, and that energy then goes to those ancestors, and they gain that wisdom and that knowledge, and then they can come back and offer you something in equal co-creation. So I've noticed when I do private sessions, you may have run across this, Dale. Once I do private sessions and I bring a healing to somebody, afterwards their ancestors will reach out and then give me the gift of the healing. Have you had that before?
So a quick story which connects to exactly what you're talking about. So I at one point I put my price up of my sessions. It was time to do it, and so I ended up doing that. And the first client I ever had where I put my price up, Andrew kept jibbing me for a long time to put it up, and I finally did it. So I got that first client, Matty, and she messaged me in the morning really early and said, I felt so groggy afterwards and not good. I had to fall asleep straight away. And the next day I was tired. So I'm getting the message thinking in my head, oh shit, I put my price up and I'm not doing a good job here. I don't really think like that at all, but that kind of went through my head, that process, like something's not right here. So I actually rang Andrew while I was on the phone to him on the evening, and I came up and I said about what happened, because I just felt like I needed to talk about it. I had someone to talk to about it. And he said, having that, what you talked about, Matty, is when someone falls asleep straight after a session, it's the biggest compliment you can have as a healer, as a psychic surgeon, because what you do is you align their unseen world and them up, that the ancestors then take on and not take over, but continue on in the dream world. And he was saying that Pacific client, I think we released and cleared over 20 different negative demons and ghosts just from her being able to go into that. Not me, her being able to free herself from it. And the ancestors are like, right, go to sleep, because we need to continue on the psychic surgeon from us now. So yeah, that experience I've had as well, bro.
They needed her infinite expression.
Yes. And I was thinking the other way, and I was like, all right, okay.
See, ancestors have always got something to teach.
Yes. And
So
go
how-
ahead, bro. Sorry,
was
go ahead
just-
what you were saying before, May. Because I kind of went off on that story then.
No, that was kind of
Yeah.
it, really. That was kind of it. It's just the for many people, the idea of ancestors is quite, it's not a broad perspective, and so that was. I just wanted to share that is that even the negative interactions with ancestors can be a lesson, but it really is about what you have to offer, and it seems to be prayer that is. The language of prayer is one of the fundamental building blocks of communication with the ancestors. Obviously, there are times where you can sit down and just speak colloquially, just speak as if we're speaking to each other in a private chat. But other times, I think you need a more ceremonial approach, not entirely serious, but more ceremonial and more. Poetic, should we say, and then these ancestors can come in and help us out, because other than that, how do you reach out? We haven't been taught that, have we, Dale? Especially in our culture. I know in Eastern cultures, ancestral connections are still practiced on a daily basis, but for us, in our part of the world, it was not something that was ever really expressed other than somber occasions.
And that's it. And a lot of people say, why don't I have a dream about the ancestors? There's a big reason: because of their frequency and where they exist, we can't remember it. So we are having conversations and going to dream with the ancestors all the time, but because of the frequency and us coming into this density, we can't remember it all the time. Laura, what you were going to speak then? You go ahead.
Well, just actually leapfrogging on from what you're saying there, is making them relevant now. So one of the ways which Andrew put me onto early on, but I think I was doing quite a lot of it anyway because I was always interested, is my family tree. So I think once you get, I loved it. I loved doing it. I went on to ancestry.com, and that gave me such a huge connection to them all, to find out where they lived, sometimes what their jobs were, maybe a little bit of what their life was like. And I've been able to get back on about 3 lines. One goes right back to the Black Death, which is 1400 and something. So I've got 2 or 3 lines where I've gone back to the 15th century, which I find, of course, in the big scheme of things in infinity, that isn't very far. But for me, on a family tree, it's wonderful. And one of the things I've spoken about before as well, but it gives me such a buzz, and I just hope it gives the ancestors a buzz too, is visiting places they were either born or they lived, something like that. So it's not just I used to just go to the churchyards and look round at the old gravestones to see if I could find their names. And now I don't do any of that. I'm more likely to find something if I go into the local village pub and sit there, because a pub, especially over here, the public house in the villages, was the centre of the village. I know the church was, but the pub was. The pub was where everybody met and traded and did deals. And obviously some of our pubs are very, very old, and you can go and sit there, and I would sit there and think, my ancestors could have sat here and are still probably sitting here next to me. And sometimes I would get a message of confirmation and so on, but just by a conversation going on next to me. The person might be called Laura. I've had many things like that where I know the ancestors are speaking to me and passing messages along. So I think that is a wonderful way to connect with your DNA lineage, is to go and visit those places. And I call it my ancestral trails. And I come back sort of floating, really. The car flies back, and I come back on the wings of the ancestors, seriously, because you are exchanging so much energy with them. It's absolutely beautiful. It's just the most amazing feeling to have that connection, and and to be sharing with them, because they want the same things we do. They want the fifth world of peace too. But what I was going to ask you guys is, so how can you tell whether when someone's got a trauma, whether it's an ancestral trauma or not? Is it just a matter of deduction when you're dealing with your clients? Does it matter? Because if somebody's carrying a trauma, they're carrying a trauma, and you're going to go through the same processes anyway. It's whether, is it a trauma that sustained this life through this childhood, or is it an ancestral debt that's been passed down?
I'd say, so from my own dealings of it, so when I'm scanning and doing a reading on someone, it usually comes forward whether it's ancestral or not, or whether it's connected to an age, or whether it's this. Usually there's a question I'll ask, whether it's which age is this from, and I'd get, say, maybe a 6 for Pacific, maybe a few years as well, or a few areas, or there would be an indication of it's an ancestral karma, or like Matty's case, there's some ancestrally hauntings here. What about yourself, Matty, and your findings with it?
Well, mechanically wise, there's a knowingness. So whenever I'm going into these kind of things, I don't generally have to stop and think about what it is. The awareness of what it is already present in my mind as soon as the connection is made. But I come across all different manners of ancestral beings affecting other beings. I mean, Trent, remember you and I, we had one that was a magician reaching out from the past, trying to put debt onto you in the now. And so that's things that, that's things that I see
the
quite a
lady
lot.
in the solar plexus.
Yes, exactly. And then there are other times where I will see another version of another person in the past or the present, just because it's relevant to that person in any given moment. Not because there has to be any massive healing done or anything really addressed, but just because the awareness of that explains certain gifts, talents, or trajectory of a being, if that makes sense. And then there are other times where you can just get a feeling that this person has a lot of responsibility within a particular lineage. They have the potential to do the great work and really make a difference. And so that is a kind of omnipresent ancestral responsibility, I think is the best word to say. Almost as if the ancestors are there behind you, waving pom-poms and cheering you along. And some people just don't seem to, some people can feel that as a pressure. So there's it's an infinite amount of ways that you can experience it in any particular reading.
And that's it. And even sometimes, say the karma, because you're kind of the lightning rod of the lineage and you're the one who's awakened, and all of the shit gets passed to you. All of it gets shuffled to you. So sometimes you have some issues, and when you go through that awakening, they're like, oh, the karma's here, this person can resolve it. So it's just constantly resolving karma, whatever we're doing. Like even now we're resolving karma just from us being on the show and doing this talk together. The people I do psychic surgery in sessions, we resolve karma. There's always just this karmic energy around us of ancestralness. And there's a question here we have from Ella Rose. Is there something specific about this time that it is encouraging to us to connect with our ancestors? I've been calling recently to connect with them. Does anybody want to answer that?
Yeah, I will. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Laura, do you want to go ahead?
No.
Okay. So I mean, Laura will have another perspective, I'm sure. So obviously we're here at the Great Dreamtime remembering and awakening. We are the apex of our DNA lineage. We are the beings that have come here to do this. It's our responsibility. So therefore a lot of eyes are on us in this journey. We also, because of the nature of the awakening, we are becoming something that you could call the purple road. So you have the red road and you have the blue road. And then through your efforts, there is a greater connection, which is the purple road, which is a living ancestor. So I'm not probably the best person to speak about this, but yeah, we are incredibly important to our lineages. I think anybody within a lineage that begins to experience a healing process, it becomes very important to the lineage. Not that anybody else is not important, because again, we come back to the teachings of equal co-creation, non-competition, non-hierarchical order. However, if you are a being on Earth at this point, at this time, in this fraud time, then you've earned the right to be here. And it's your responsibility to act in the now, to heal yourself so your lineages can heal as well. And so therefore, absolutely, the ancestors are looking in our direction. And this is a special time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, couldn't have put it better, Matty. That's great. I was going to say, yeah, it's because we are in the eighth colour of time now, and it's a time of the Great Awakening, and we are us sat here, and you too, all remembering that what we've come for. We've come to connect with our ancestors. We've come to push this forward to the fifth world of peace.
Incredible stuff. Amy, have you anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, this is great. So, Maddie, did you guys answer the question about the haunting, like you did, right, with the soul shard and
Go on, rephrase your question.
the haunting of the ancestral? How do we know if we've been haunted? Will we know, or should we just assume that it's definitely in our lineage?
Well, I don't want to give away too many specifics. Let's just say that this particular one of mine was, this is Andrew's description, a cousin of an incubus succubus.
Okay.
So do you know what incubus and succubus are?
Yeah.
Sexual demons or sexual ghosts. So you can imagine the kind of influence that this particular being had. So it was feeding from sexual energy and manipulating sexual scenarios. So it was brought to my attention in a I've forgotten what the term is now, QHT or HQ, I can't remember, in one of those sessions, but it wasn't then dealt with. So there are ways to know, but it's a very difficult thing, even from the perspective of myself, Dale and Laura, and anybody else, Trent, anybody else who has these types of awareness. It's a very difficult thing to see clearly, especially within yourself. So with these kind of issues, if you're having constant issues within your life, it's always better to get somebody from outside to come in and have a look. Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, no, I was just asking because, okay, how do we take what, the living, let's say when I was a child, the living grandparent of the lineage of let's say my father's father, and I just was not comfortable around him. So is that an indication of, there's
That's
something there?
That you have psychic abilities.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So an ancestral haunting would be something much more negative, something that would affect you within your day-to-day life.
Okay.
You just can't get past a certain issue, or something is constantly bringing you into states of repetition without illumination, or into constant negative scenarios or forced evolutionary scenarios over and over again.
Okay, so I just didn't know if that was like passed down, through him.
No,
And
you're
it's
just picking up on something. Yeah.
Okay.
Picking up on something, and that's past life. Your
Oh, okay.
relationship with him in past life, yeah.
Yeah.
Where
Okay.
you've had uncomfortable relationships. Same with my dad.
But there's also what
We've been
Andrew
at
calls
war.
the trailer trash soul family as well. So sometimes within soul families, obviously within the fine print to get here, we have to go into certain lineages that we considered like trailer trash. And so sometimes you can get those kind of feelings as well.
And connecting to that trailer trash, I actually had an experience. I can't mention it too much and go into too many details, but there was a session that I was part of with someone, and their ancestors it was quite bad. Like they were the definition of trailer trash soul family. And basically this person had to get out of that soul family and basically renounce being part of their lineage, because all it was just trailer trash, lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. So I've had that firsthand, Matty, really what that can do with like sexual abuse or something like that, like a lineage where all throughout their lineage they've been abused, sexually abused, and it just gets passed down, and it's just trailer trash all the way up. Unfortunately, not always, but sometimes it does happen.
Wow. Okay, so soul family is different than ancestral lineage, or is it?
I'd
I
say
don't know.
we're all in a way we're all soul family, the good, the bad, the in between.
Okay.
It depends how you're looking at it. Depends what you mean, what soul family means for you. I'd say our closest soul family are like us, but then we have our other soul family who are like people we meet and so on. We've had past lives with. Then there's our universal soul family, which is our ancestors of our originality, where they're even obviously they can't come here at the moment. The system has made that impossible for all of them to come together, because obviously we wouldn't have this galactic ascension machine going on.
Wow.
Anything you want to add, Trent?
Yeah, I really like what Maddie was saying about the Purple Road ancestors. Just that key word. You can understand something, but somebody could say a phrase and it just make you understand it in a new way. So when I hear that, it's like, we're taking, not, I know that time is not linear, but whenever you say Purple Road ancestors, it's like you're taking the beings of the Red Road, like everything that they've done, and you're taking the beings of the Blue Road, everything that they're trying to do, and you're bringing it into the now. And it's almost like you're becoming all of these things in a living, breathing moment. And that's awesome. Thank you for just saying Purple Road ancestors,
Yes,
Maddie. That's
it's one of those
freaking
one of those
awesome.
things that we probably really need Andrew here to give his true description of what that means. But in my journey, I feel that frequency coming in the more that I work with the ancestors, and I realize that my great work and their great work is in equal co-creation. And so the gap between the two roads is coming together to create the Purple Road. That's just my feeling of it as I go through my own process.
Wow.
So if, say, the more teachings that you bring in from the Red Road and the Blue Road, they obviously don't go away, but I don't know, I'm just trying to envision this in my mind, like just the merging of like all of their teachings into one, like, whoa.
We become a living
It's
ancestor.
a lot to try to comprehend, but it's a beautiful thing to try to think about,
And this is why the ancestors and all the teachings have been erased from our oral traditions, that we don't see them on the media, we see them, a few of them on films now and then, but not that much. Because like you, Trent, I can see the spark in your eye when you're talking about the ancestors, you're talking about your own experience. They don't want us to be like that. They don't want us to realize how fucking powerful we are, how we can outcreate anything at the moment, how beautiful we are inside, how there's so much memory and all this ancient knowledge, DNA memory within us. They don't want us thinking like that, because if we did think like that, we wouldn't be trapped here and we wouldn't be slaves. So beautifully put, Trent, and I liked the spark. I saw that spark in you, man, when you were talking about that.
Thank you, though.
And the disconnect that's been going on with the system and our ancestors is so subtle sometimes. I don't even think that generation after generation we necessarily notice. But it's like, you might have at one time when maybe we had larger houses. So our aunties, our grandparents might live with us. And now everybody's reduced to, like, what is it, a one-bedroom apartment somewhere, or, you can't have your parents with you. I'm not suggesting that it should all be like that, but it was that we lived more in communities, and they've been discommunicating us, gradually, haven't they? Taking away, isolating people, so that now you live in a little box. And you're boxed away from your ancestors, away from other people, away from the older generation who would have passed you the stories of the ancestors. Yeah, so who would have, those stories would have carried on, and then television took over, and many things. Not that it makes television wrong, not that it makes the internet wrong, but we somewhere we've lost the balance. And we've got to come back to teaching our children and giving them the stories of the ancestors.
And that's it. Has anybody got like their own experience wise, you know, when like your granddad used to share stories, or my granddad used to, when I drove around with him in his van, he was a plumber, and he used to share every single house you went past, he had a story. So every time you're out in the van, he told you about what happened on this day back 50 years ago. And there's that beauty, isn't there, of that when they share the stories with us of this, just of what they saw and what they perceived. It's incredible.
Yeah, it is. It is lovely listening to them, and my dad had many, many, many very funny stories. And when they came to assess him to whether he could stay at home or whether he would go into a home, and the guy came out for a half-hour call to assess him, 4 hours later he was still sat there as my dad was regaling stories, and the guy couldn't get a word in.
Has anybody got any stories to share? Any ancestral stories which have stuck with us throughout our life?
So, what I really like about the ancestors and working with them and learning about them is there's no judgment with them. You know, like what would be considered cultural appropriation, the ancestors don't care about that. You know, if you want to wear a Peruvian llama poncho, or you want to, you know, pray with your head on the ground, or you want to beat a drum, like you can do that with the ancestors. You know, all of them can come and offer a small piece of the way that they pray to you, and you can do all of that and make it your own without judgment. I absolutely love that. That's one of my favorite things.
Incredible, man. Anything anyone wants to add to that?
Yeah, I would like to say something. So, who is it that touched on somebody was given something physical by their ancestors? Was it Amy? And so this is another thing, is that we have this physical world, and then we have the worlds of spirit, the multiple different layers and different dimensions of spirit, some of which the ancestor beings live in. And there are parts of us in those realms. And like we acquire possessions here, but possessions is probably not the right word, so too we can in the unseen world, a so-called unseen infrastructure. And so this is something else that the ancestors can do, is they can come into that realm and to gift that part of ourselves, our light bodies and our dreaming body, different objects or things of power that then we then take into our infinite self and use for whatever we use it for. So there's a myriad of different things. You know, this was the thing when we first begin to address the ancestors. It's kind of, well, what are they going to do for me, and what can I do for them? It's quite confusing, isn't it, Dale? You know, when you think, what actually can
What have you got for me?
Yeah, exactly, but it is a language that we must learn.
Incredible. Yeah. Go ahead, Amy.
And also, I'd like to share the unspoken word, because I have to say, with my dad, who I was close to, driving in the car with him, listening to the baseball game on the radio, like, we didn't talk, but we did talk. Like, I would just remember those times where we were talking, but it wasn't with spoken word. And those are precious moments for me, even though I've heard stories, and I would listen as a little girl to him talking to his dad about stories, but it's in here somewhere. But those moments, the unspoken word with my dad was very special.
And that's it. And we've got to think of the generation we've been brought up into. What used to happen 100 years ago, people at school used to get slapped, hit. We've basically, our granddads, grandparents have gone through the ringer. They've experienced a lot of shit. They probably got slapped and beaten and stuff like that. And that's, sometimes we've got to remember the great memories and what the lessons are, because a lot of people get so stuck on the negative experiences and memories of that person that they don't see the greater memories and lessons they've learned with them as well. And that's why being in that neutral perspective and seeing it for what it is, because I was like that with my dad, but now all I see is great memories. Even though the bad memories, I'm honoured to have those memories with him, and I honour him as well as a spirit, as an ancestor. So yeah, incredible stuff. So we've got 15 minutes left on the show. Which direction do we want to go in Laura, Matty?
I was just going to go back a minute to what Amy was saying about the difference between soul family and your DNA lineage. And I think what's happened, Amy, is because the system has basically been in, or the Force Light hologram been in charge of the reincarnation system. And this is putting it really simply. You can't go into your soul family in your you can't have many soul family in your DNA lineage. I don't have any at all, because if we were all in one DNA lineage, how powerful would that lineage be? As say we're all soul family here, how powerful would that lineage be? So the system has to disrupt us somehow. So we spend our lives seeking and trying to find our soul family, so that we can come together and do the great work now.
Yeah.
But how fantastic is that? Again, it's flipping the frequencies of a system that's tried to hold us down, and yet people find each other. People find each other through frequency, through whatever else, and so they do their great work and work towards being the celestial medium of peace. It's all that is what the journey is about.
Beautiful. And that's it. It's for my own process. When I went through my greater growth, say 4 years ago, was a time for me where it was a different scale of growth, where I put in the effort, the discipline, the schedule, where it became fun. And all these people I kept meeting and appearing, like Laura, Matty, yourself, Amy, Trent, and Andrew just appeared in my life. And all these teachers saying, are you ready for this responsibility now? Because you're doing the work, being responsible, and all these responsible people are fucking appearing who do the work as well. And you're like, oh, hello. So again, we are kind of going into this fifth world of peace, and what we do on ourselves attracts that pheromone of the soul family, where we all come together and we all make communities and go through this together. Beautiful, Laura.
The real law of separation.
Yes,
and attraction.
There we go, bro.
Tell you what, we need a show on the Purple Road ancestors with Andrew.
Yes,
because
absolutely.
me too, Trent and Amy. I would really like to know more about that, because that is us, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think I've only heard that term, Andrew mentioned that term once, and I don't think I've questioned it. So it's really good to have your illumination on it, Matty. But yeah, I'd love to know more about the Purple Road ancestors. I'd be very proud to be one.
And
I'm sure you will. Sure you get your stamp.
If I'm a good girl.
Something else we haven't
I'm a
touched
naughty
on much
girl.
is the future ancestors as well.
Yes.
So that's something that is very mysterious to me in my own personal practice. And when I have a future version of myself come into my frequency, it's always a pleasure, and it's always one of those things that really catches me. Because sometimes I have quite a lot of things coming in and out of my awareness, but when it's another version of me, it's always quite special, And there's a real sense of what's the word? Healedness that's coming from the future. It's does that make sense, Dale? Have you had experienced this? Where
I got
like higher self kind of energy.
Yeah, well, I got shivers, like not shivers, but a warming memory of a dream I had when you just said that, and it filled me with a burst of energy. Yeah, I had a dream of my future self. I woke up in this dream, and he was laid down on this. It looked like stone, real cool, like pyramid type stone. There wasn't a pyramid, but there was loads of different stone, and he was laid down looking at me, and I knew it was me from the future. And he telepathically started talking to me, and I shat myself. Like, this was about 7-8 years ago. He telepathically, his eyes opened up, and he started basically speaking in my head. And I remember Gabrielle was there as well. A future version of her was next to me as well. And I kind of went a bit crazy. I was like, oh shit. And he went up to me and goes, don't worry, bro. And he went up to me and pricked me with a pin, and I woke up. He said, don't worry. And he pinned me, and as soon as he pricked me with his pin, I woke up in my bed, and I'm like, what the fuck? You've just reminded me of that. I've not thought about that in a long time. So yeah, I have had that.
Sowing the seeds.
Incredible, guys, and what a show so far. It's been super fun, and to have all of you on and us to come into this together and share our own stories. So Laura, is there anything you want to add or go into next for the last part of the show? Trent, Amy, anything you want as well?
What would you like, Trent and Amy, as our guests?
I mean, I'm open to anything, really. I don't know if that helps much, but
That sounds quite. I'm open for anything, Keith. And what
You're on the wrong show again.
We're on the wrong show, aren't we?
I thought I cleared that.
We could get Matty.
I did.
Go on,
oh,
Amy. Sorry.
well,
No, go on,
I
Mala.
wrote. I wrote down something when I think Laura, you said taking on the mantle of responsibility. How do we know that we're doing it? How do we know?
Are you doing
you
a
know-
daily practice?
Yeah. So that would be taking on the responsibility. Okay. And then but I feel like this, you always need to up it and increase it. And what more can I do for
Yeah.
the ancestors?
Yeah.
Because you can get into that lull kind of thing where you're just doing it more automatic than you are doing it from the heart. So I
Yeah.
guess you do know when you're being
You,
I answered my own question.
I'm smiling because as the longer you talk, the more you're answering your own question,
answering
and you're reaffirming to yourself that, oh yes, actually I do it.
I do.
Because you hold yourself accountable. You're holding yourself accountable and trying to
Yeah.
grow, and you're trying to vary what you do. So it's not mundane. So it is done from the heart.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Yep. I answered that. So it's like that interrogating questions you ask yourself.
You
what
hold
more do I
yourself
need to do?
accountable.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And that the mantle of responsibility is. Andrew's always talking about courage, commitment, discipline. That's what the mantle of responsibility is, and the unconditional love that comes with it. And it's not a chore. You're doing it in joy, and you're doing it for your ancestors past and future again. You're doing it because you came and chose to be here at the time of the Great Awakening. And this, I'm speaking from my heart now, and I want to do it. There's nothing else I want to do more than co-create with my ancestors so we can have the fifth world of peace. There's nothing. I love life. I love, I'm so joyful in what I do. But this is for me why I came.
Yeah.
And everything else is part of it, not necessarily secondary, but this is my driving force. And the more I do, the more help you get, and the more personally I'm able to manifest experiences in my life which are just feel like they propel me. A year ago I never thought I'd work with Andrew and these great guys here, or meet any of you, and now look, Two Feathers Medicine was formed last year, and now it's on Andrew's platform with Symmetry of Health with Dale. It's just, and that I know, I feel it's because I work with my ancestors. And I work with Great Spirit, Great Mystery, like we did on the show the other day. But absolutely, I mean, you know, Amy, when you're doing the work, and when you're not doing the work, and we all need time off from it as well sometimes. And we all need to, sometimes I have to make myself take time off from it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I think we all have a problem with that here.
Sometimes that's part of the work, is
Yeah.
making yourself
Yes.
not work.
It is.
Yeah.
Absolutely, Trent. There's a lot of dichotomies in this
Because you
on
know
this
why?
path.
Yeah, because it feels like you're in no time. You didn't even
Yes.
realize that you just spent the whole day with your ancestors and everything else that we do. Like it's very weird for me right now
Yes. Yeah.
with the time.
And
Yeah.
something I want to add there as well is, which Andrew has mentioned before on different shows, is the galactics and the other races out there, the galactic seeds or whatever you want to call them, they are, well, a lot of them want to be here where we are now. They want to be experiencing coming into this fifth world of peace, coming into this golden age. I don't like saying that word, but coming into the golden age or whatever you want to call it. It is such an honor and a rare experience to be here on Earth going through this and what we've gone through in the past, where we become the masters. I don't like using again the word ascended, but we learn graduation and what the skill and it took for all of us to graduate, because we are going to graduate. Us doing this work means we're going to be the first lot who graduate, and that's just the natural process of all of us here today, allowing the Soul family to come onto this show, the people listening as well in the past, present and future. We're all part of this together. There's no hierarchy here. We're all doing our own roles and jobs. So yeah, what an inspiring show, guys, and we'll be back. I think in a few weeks' time, we've got someone on to do an interview with someone. But a month from now, you're more than welcome to come back on. We'll have other guests, because I feel like this opening up to more people and having this conversation has been fucking really fun. I don't know about you, Matty and Laura, but it's been incredible.
It's been brilliant. It's been really, really good. And yeah, lovely, Ellie Rose. Yeah, feels like I have to learn to live in two worlds. Yeah, you're a multi-dimensional being, and yes, you walk with a foot in each, because you can't leave this world. You're meant to be here. You're meant to be in the world, but you're off the earth. And when you remember that, you connect with the natural organic way of being, and then the world itself works better for you when you do that. So yeah, thank you for that statement. Thank you for everyone, Danny. Sean, Nicola, who came in and gave their comments. Beautiful, thank you.
And Ella as well, thank you. So what we'll do before we close, Matty is going to share us some light language about closing the space and honouring the ancestors. So thank you again, guys, for an incredible show, and we will be back, and I love you all, and here, the journey has only begun. Dun dun dun.
Dun dun.
Dun dun dun. Go ahead, bro.
Okay, guys. So just allow yourself to just absorb whatever's going on, and I'm going to address the ancestors here in light language, and we're going to just give gratitude for our co-creation, and they're going to speak back to us, and then we will close sacred space. Tanchanga, Pariketabaka, Paliamwa, Vakachukongo Gitakachinta Tola Halam, Rakachakali Beketi Kinchuchungo, Bongorki Halama, Toshiko Tungo Hinkapaha, Darike Belam, Sunkatachikela Mata Chinkela, Sunkoto Gohoriki, Hembagaha, Tokunja, Tokorahana. Saari kielä mati tuntochun, kurtke bekele makatukuhonkoja. Satakataan kielä, prikete bekete pichun, onkopuko kunkos kunkitakanga. Tanjaarit kielä, bariketelja smakaaljelle, parkungange. Buha, bonjaalien. Shabajikoelä makati kielä. No kaadatim, urtik Shkungo had to umawa, umoyuk, umark, stuck, burt, Dodgy tail, Barika Bahala, Nadi the Betichin Lemagahala, Jakalia Lebatishkelem, Kurko ungo he. Na, Dabahwa. Tung chakahi kichike lehla maganga, Jangara biki hela bachikinke. Tata, Tangaragaha, Waha.
Beautiful.
Wow, Matty, that made me quite tearful. Beautiful.
Incredible. Thank you, brother. That was Trent and Amy. How was that for you? So used to saying it. How was that for you, brother?
It was good. I could feel my eyes twitching, and I think those were the codes going in and out, and it was very comforting. Thank you, Maddie.
Yeah.
To roughly translate it, it was talking, addressing the ancestors and thanking them for their co-creation, and then it was bringing in the blue and the red roads and crossing them over, and then the purple road, and then just some prayers about may each and every heart awaken in its own right and proper time, and the co-creation between us and the ancestors, and then the great Dreamtime awakening itself, and then they addressed us, and I can't translate some of that. It's so quick, the light is so quick that I'd need to slow it down in order to do it, but it would ruin the flow. So, but then they addressed us back, and then the final part was thanking them and closing sacred space.
That's beautiful.
Beautiful.
Thank you for
Sorry,
yeah.
letting us know
Beautiful. Thanks, Matt.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Lovely.
Incredible, brother. Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for watching. And if you're on, subscribe, go on to the Galactic Historian Rumble page, follow that. There's a lot of stuff coming up. And before we go as well, I've got an advert about Scotland as well I'm just going to play. And thank you, everyone, again. Love you guys, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, guys. I
Love
love
you.
you.
Thanks, guys.
you.
Thank you. Take care.
Welcome, everyone, to the Scottish Highlands Galactic Historian What's Your Purpose tour. You're asking, what's my purpose? Your purpose is to go on this tour and discover the mystical, magical highlands and lowlands of Scotland. We'll be going from Edinburgh to Kirkwall, Inverness, all over the Scottish lands, as you can see on our incredible map. So I want to bring in Dale to talk about what is going to be included with this trip.
So what's included on this What's My Purpose tour, we'll get a chance to meet Andrew Bartis, and we'll be able to ask him what our own purposes are, and we'll be able to ponder and try and figure this out in 10 days.
And each and every day, we will be driving and I will be talking about the histories of the places that we are passing and going to. And a part of these attractions are what we're including in this tour to make it the most memorable tour I've ever been on. Dale, what are the attractions and everything that's included?
A Scottish driver and also a guide. You'll have your own very luxurious Mercedes-Benz coach as well. It'll include all transport and ferries, 9 nights accommodation, and 9 breakfasts, and also dinner included as well. So for the attractions you'll get free entry to Dunrobin Castle and Gardens. You'll also be tasting the fine whiskey at the Highland Whiskey Distillery tasting, where you'll be able to see the spirits being made and created. And we'll be also getting entry to Scarabray, the Garrigan Blackhouses Village, Callanish Standing Stones, which are so famous throughout the world. And we'll be also going entry to the Armdale Castle and Gardens, where we get the chance just to relax and walk around and just enjoy the scenery and the outside and the history. Also, we'll be going on a half-boat day trip to Stafford, and we'll be also going to entry to Iona Abbey.
This is your opportunity to take the pilgrimage with all of us to the Scottish Highlands, the 10-day bus tour around the Scottish Highlands. On the first day of the journey, of this 10-day journey.
Hello again and goodbye. Thank you.